Good morning and welcome to the EZFX Trading Room broadcast for Thursday, October 20th, 2016. My name is Bradley Freed, and for the next 20 to 30 minutes, you'll be joining me for a review of our watch list from yesterday. We're going to go through the watch list. We're going to look at the trades we were watching, the trades we have open, update the list, and we're also going to, if there are any available, introduce new trades that have appeared in the interim since we last talked. If you have any questions during the broadcast and you're watching live, we have a chat room on this page. You can post your questions and I will answer them live at the end of the broadcast. If you're watching the recording and you have questions, we have community features on this website. You can go to the trading room group. If you go to community group on the top menu, you can post to that group, post a question, post a chart, post anything you want. And myself or another member of EZFX will be happy to answer or engage with you on your question. Also, we have private messaging. You can find me on the members menu under community, and my handle is EZFX, and send me a private message, or you can send me an email at ezfxsignal@gmail.com. So let's go ahead and get started by reviewing the watch list from yesterday. We're watching quite a few currency pairs. This has been a real sluggish market again this week with not much happening. Not much really moving or starting to trend in our favor after we get signals, which is very frustrating. I do think more and more this has to do a lot with the U.S. election, and that we may not get any relief until after the voting is complete and we've selected the next president in the United States. So on our watching list, we have a New Zealand yen sell, Aussie yen sell, dollar CAD buy, Euro New Zealand buy, Aussie Swiss sell, Euro dollar buy, pound yen buy, pound dollar buy, Euro pound sell, pound Aussie buy, and pound New Zealand buy. On our new and open trades list, our dollar sing dollar sell is open on the 1 hour chart. New Zealand dollar buy was open on the 1 hour chart. Aussie New Zealand buy open on the 1 hour chart. Dollar kroner still open on the 4 hour chart, and pound Swiss sell still open on the 4 hour chart. So without further ado, let's jump over to our charts. We're going to run through these pairs. I want to start with the new and open trades first, and then we're going to go through our watch list trades and see if anything has changed significantly overnight. Okay, so dollar sing dollar was an open trade. I did not send it as a signal. I did not take that trade in my own account because I don't have that pair available to me. But it is a valid trade, and so I wanted to introduce it to you. The pair has fallen, or it fell, and then it's risen again towards this Class A signal here. If you recall, we had talked about having a stop above this zone, with the original entry being on a close below this trend line and a triangular moving average color change. We had a nice sell bubble right here. So this gave us pretty much all the confirmation points we're looking for when we open a trade, and yet it hasn't really moved very far yet. So at this time, you can actually still get in this trade if you want to. I would not do that until we have perhaps price return to this zone and then show us a new setup, meaning a new sell bubble, for example, or a new Class A signal or something else, because this may just start to trend and trend higher and break through this, and that would just be a waste. If you're already in this, you've already sized your trade. You're risking 1% or less of your account and on the stop, and you just need to ride this out. And this may in fact drop and give us lower low and punch through this new, or rather new demand zone down here and move towards the profit targets on this trade. Now the targets on this trade, if we look at the trade space defined by the recent trend, the bottom is actually down here. Let's go to the 4 hour chart so we can see it more clearly. The trend really started down here, I think, and then this move continued upwards. The most recent part of the move is this really tight trend here. So I think we're going to use that just to be more specific about what we're looking at. So we go from the bottom here to the top of this. And then that gives us pretty clear profit targets, right? We have the 50% retracement level, which we talked about yesterday. If you want to be a little bit more aggressive, we have a weekly pivot just below that you could target. But I think I'd be satisfied with a slightly more conservative target in this case. And the final profit target, you could use a 78.6% Fibonacci level or the October monthly pivot, which is just below it. So this trade is still open. If it does fail, we can redraw our trend line and we can look for a second chance, a 1-2 punch retrade back down if this was just a little too early. But it may be that this is just retracing a little bit before it finally breaks down and falls. So I would go ahead and hold on. If you're not in it yet, wait for additional confirmation, a new entry signal to get into it. And I'll keep you posted on how it progresses. Next, let's look at the Newsy dollar buy. This trade is still progressing. Almost got to the final profit target up here last night. It's produced a lot of Class B divergence, no opposite Class A signal yet. The triangular moving average is still blue, which means it's bullish, and we're still trending according to our definition. I went ahead on my count, and I want to go ahead and target the October monthly pivot. I think it can get there. I'm going to keep for a signal officially the original target that we had, but in my own account, I've moved the profit extension target up a little higher. I just think that it can easily get there. If you look at what's happening, this has created a head and shoulders, and it's retracing back up to where it started from here at this supply zone, and I think it can easily hit that pivot. Plus, the monthly pivots are extraordinarily reliable in being hit, especially on retracement moves. So I'm going to go ahead and keep trying to get to that point. Let's look at the Aussie Newsy buy, excuse me. And this trade has fallen. So now we've seen an opposite Class A and a triangular moving average color change. This is a complete signal on the 4-hour chart to go ahead and close this position. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Just jump into my VPS here. There's not much left for the remainder of the trade in terms of profit, but we can book it as a win, and we're following our rules. I did wait a little bit longer. If you recall, it's perfectly valid to go ahead and get out of the trade when you see the opposite Class A form. I wanted to hold on though, because I think that we could have gone further on this trade, but it appears to be breaking down. It's given us both points of confirmation now. Often when that happens, you do end up having to close out the trade at a lesser profit than if you had gotten out at the initial opposite Class A signal. But that was a risk I was willing to take, especially considering the stop was already at break even and there wasn't an actual risk of loss on the trade. It does take the VPS a second to start up. But I'm going to go ahead and close this Aussie Newsy for a whopping $3.40 of profit. But a profit is a profit, a rule is a rule. And we're out of that trade. And so just for fun, I'm going to go ahead and take a screenshot of this chart so I can send out a close signal on this trade. Okay, getting back to our charts. Okay. So this is closed. And the result is, I always post the maximum result we made, and that was when we hit target 1. 141 pips. And if you recall, this is also a trend trade, and it was successful. So that's a successful example of a trend trade. Although, even though the profit extension portion didn't achieve a higher profit than the initial profit target. All right, moving on to the dollar kroner. Let's take a look at that one. This has also not been doing much for us. It's been kind of ranging down here. I'm still looking for a breakout higher on this pair. It hasn't happened yet, but it's kind of gone to this low here that seems to be the bottom of the range, and then it gets pushed back up. So I'm hoping that we can see a rise within the next 24 hours and hopefully break through this supply zone finally and get to our initial profit target, where we can take some money off the table and move the stop to break even. But for now, there's not much change. It's still an open trade. Next, let's look at the pound Swiss. That's a sell trade. And this has finally moved in our direction. Remember, it looked like it would stop out, and now it's finally starting to drop. And actually, if I open up my VPS again, we can take a look at this. Just open a server. So the dollar Swiss right now, or I'm sorry, the pound Swiss is still not in the money, given where we got into it, but it isn't failing anymore either. It's dropping back towards the lows made here through this consolidation. It was rising. Now it's starting to fall. If we can really see this drop, if we get some catalyst in the news that causes this to drop, I think we can get back down to this low made here. And that's been kind of the whole point of this exercise. We had a good risk reward on this, a reasonable stop loss. And this huge drop made during the flash crash 3 weeks ago is, I think, a reasonable target for this pair to go to, because I don't think this pair is done dropping yet. If I'm wrong, it'll break out, it'll stop out, and we'll have to reconsider what we're thinking. But for these pound pairs in general, even if they're setting up buy signals, I'm not taking those trades because I have a general fundamental bias in the sell direction. So those are all of our open trades. We have 3 open, we just closed one, and we have another that is not a signal trade, it's also open. So let's start to go through our watch list, starting with the New Yen sell. And you may notice I have a new indicator on the chart. This is something I'm testing. I'm not ready to talk about it yet. But depending on what kind of results I see with it, we may be adding it to our system for the next iteration of mean reversion trading. More on that later. So right now, this pair is still trending higher. We made a higher high here. There's divergence on that. There's no bubbles. The triangular moving average is still blue. And we have a intact trend line that hasn't been broken through on this pair. So I'm not ready to set up a trade. There's also no supply zone above price, Class A or Class B. So I'm still watching this, and hopefully we'll get a sell trade to set up on this in the coming days. There's a nice monthly pivot and a nice weekly pivot below, which I see, which are potentially attractive targets depending on the required risk reward ratio. And I'll keep you posted on this trade. Aussie yen is the next one. Aussie yen is also, or has been trending. It started to break down though, and our initial trend line is really here. It broke down. I didn't take the trade. Remember, I told you I wasn't ready to take the trade yet. And it retraced up, sure enough, and now it's dropping again. We have a triangular moving average color change. We had a trend line break. We have a Class A supply zone here. This is a valid entry. I'm not sure I'm ready to trade it. And the reason I'm not is because I don't have a bubble. And I'm trying to be more strict about always having a bubble when I set up a trade, especially in these markets. We really need to minimize loss, to be really strict about our entry conditions and the required confirmation before we enter a trade. So I'm not ready to do that. We did have a bubble back here, but there was almost no reaction to it. So I'm waiting for a new bubble closer to where price is. I think this may range for a while and go up again, may perhaps even punch through this zone and go higher. So I'm not very anxious to get into it at this point. Next, we'll look at the dollar CAD buy. This actually set up in a lot of volatility, not uncommon for the dollar CAD. It punched through it. It had this huge drop here, then it punched through our trend line and closed. Triangular moving average color change. It did not produce a bubble, so I did not get into this trade. The required stop would have been fairly large, 121 pips. Again, not impossible, but you also have to think, given the trade space, where would your actual profit target be, and would the risk to reward ratio be enough? And that's another problem with this trade. Another reason I didn't take it. So again, say 119 pip stop. The weekly pivot is not enough. It's only 73. This weekly pivot is only 94. Bottom of the supply zone, you could do that. That would be a valid target. For an initial profit target, then you would trend follow from there on. Or you could set a fixed profit target to the next supply zone for a profit extension target. It doesn't really have a clean trade space, and then it's been ranging up and down. So we would actually be seeking profit extension targets beyond the border of the trade space, which I also don't like to do. But certainly it's possible. This pair is extremely volatile. It's just as likely to fall and hit its stop as it is to even get to this initial zone here at this point. So all in all, I'm not too excited about this setup or this trade, but it was a valid setup. If you are in this, I would suggest an initial profit target at the supply zone, or a final profit and take profit on the entire position at that point. Close it out, perhaps anticipate a sell trade, or you can split it up into two trades. First target here, and the second target at the next supply zone at 1.33745. At any rate, this trade is open. It's not a signal trade, but I'm going to go ahead and put it as an open trade so we can track it. And it's open on the 1 hour chart. All right, moving on to the Euro Newsy. See where this pair went. There it is, sorry. Okay, so this is, if you recall, this is the one I really like. This has moved really far, really fast. It has a very clean trend line that's been bouncing off again and again and again and again. So it's a very significant trend line. A setup on this pair would be a nice trade. We have monthly pivots, we have weekly pivots. We have a nice trend here, which gives us a trade space that is currently 657 pips wide. And we're starting to get a break through this trend line here. I want to be careful about entering this trade just like any others. As this triangular moving average line repaints, this may become a buy bubble, which would be a point of confirmation. I do want to see the triangular moving average change color in addition to a close above this trend line. I would ideally like to see a new Class A demand zone down here as well, but Class B plus these others would be acceptable if we have a convincing candle close above this trend line. So this I'm watching. I'm going to go ahead and put that this is a new trade because it's, I think, very close to producing an entry signal. And the distinction between new and open is simply that a new one is almost there versus something that's on the watch list is something that's still forming that we don't really have everything that we need yet to go ahead and commit to a trade on it. Aussie Swiss sell is our next pair we want to look at. This actually set up and fell. We did finally get a sell bubble here. just with the trend line repainting. The triangular moving average has not changed color. It would be a class B divergence plus bubble plus trend line break combination. This required stop would be after this confirming candle here that's closed below the trend line. 60 pips, pretty tight, pretty good actually. And for profit targets, we have a weekly pivot and a monthly pivot. And I'll check where those are in relation to our Fibonacci retracements in just a second. I just want to change the color of the stop to red so it's clear. And then let's just look at the entire move. Just like the other pairs we've seen, this has a recent portion of this trend and a longer portion of this trend. I'm going to go ahead and use the entire trend from down here. That's going to be the bottom of our trade space, and the top of the trade space will be up here, top of the market. And if we do that, then this weekly pivot is actually a pretty conservative target. It's only at the 38.2, whereas the monthly is just below the 61.8. I'm actually comfortable with that. I don't think we necessarily need to try for any more. So I think we can do that. And risk to reward would be acceptable on that if we got in here. So 62 pips in exchange for 93 and 202, certainly more than acceptable. And this is actually dropping pretty hard right now. So if you happen to get into this trade, unfortunately, this happened while I was asleep, so I wasn't able to get into it. But if you did get into this, it's set up and it's on its way, hopefully, to some profit. So I'm going to call this an open trade. $1 buy, 1 hour chart. That's our next pair we're looking at. This is also broken out big, and it really didn't give us a chance to get in it. It may retrace down. This is, I think, event driven. This is probably announcement driven. If it does that, then I think you can think about buying it potentially, unless this just completely reverses and goes down. But do wait for this candle close on the 1 hour chart to see what happens before you make any judgment about whether or not to get into a trade on that signal. It's significant. Let's put it that way. And something we should pay attention to. Top of the market up here at that Class A supply zone. Bottom of the market at the recent low. It means we can put targets just using the fibs, 1 at the 50% retracement level. Stop just below the recent lows. We don't have to go all the way to the bottom of the zone, which still has quite a bit of space beneath it. And we can do the monthly pivot just above that. Just above that 78.6% Fibonacci retracement level. And this is retracing quite a bit, so we may get an entry opportunity out of this yet. If it retraces all the way back below the line, which does happen, and sometimes it actually starts to drop again, then we'd wait for some additional confirmation. But definitely keep an eye on it. And this may be our entry signal for this trade. So I'm going to go ahead and put it as a new trade. Next, let's look at the pound yen buy. Nothing has happened. Nothing has changed. No movement at all, exactly in the direction of our trend line or our entry. Nothing happening here. Pound dollar buy. It's another one of our potential pound trades. This trade is also, it set up, it gave us a signal, but like I said, I haven't seen a triangular moving average change color again. We're watching this in the 4 hour chart. It kind of broke out, it's dropped. We'll see if it rises again, but given that the pound Swiss was dropping I think this pair may start to drop as well. It may be the start, may or may not be the start of a larger move down, but we're certainly anticipating that. So we'll see what happens. I would say we're still watching this at this point. This is not even a new trade yet. Now, euro pound on the 4-hour chart. So here's one that gave us a sell signal, and now it's starting to go up again. So this, like I said, this is not really reliable to accept a signal in the sell direction where the pound would be strengthening. The pound is continuing to weaken. Fundamentally, I think those fundamentals are stronger than our technical signals. So I'm very much biased in trading in the direction of that fundamental bias. And on the 4-hour chart, it looks something like this. I think we're seeing the bottom of the range here, and we're starting to rise again. We may even make a new high on this pair, but certainly I don't think it's time to sell it yet. So I'm going to leave it on the watch list for now. Pound Aussie buy, pound Aussie buy. Remember, these were the most reliable ones in terms of that they weren't really showing us any signal yet. They seem to be reflecting what's going on fundamentally with the market. No false positives here. And these, again, no change. They just continue to move down. They made recent lower lows. Continued their march down to the low made during the flash crash. Pound Aussie, same deal. Very stable. Still trending downwards, still making lower lows very quietly, actually. So we're still watching these two pairs. And these are my favorite pairs compared to the others because I think they're less volatile in terms of when they do give us a signal, it's going to be a fairly reliable thing. And it's going to be something we want to pay attention to. So I'm definitely most interested in those of all of these. I'll go ahead and kind of give them a mark to these just to signify that. So that's all the updates for today. We've had some results. We have some things happening, I think, with some of our pairs, which may mean that trades are setting up. I'll be sending signals on those if they turn out to be something that we can trade. I just want to check and make sure we don't have any questions on the live trading room page before we end for the day. And we don't have anybody attending live today, but if you do have any questions, as I explained, you can use the go to the community menu. We have on the groups, you can go to the trading room group and post a question, a chart, anything you want. Keep it clean, keep it topical. And if you go to members and find me at EZFX, you can send me a private message. You can also send me an email at ezfxsignal@gmail.com. Thanks very much for watching. I'll be back on Monday with the next update for the trading room and for our trades. Of course, I'll be sending updates by mail to our members about trade signals and new trade signals, current trades, etc. And I should be updating the blog, our signals blog, with charts and results, etc. on Friday. I'll talk to you soon. Have a great remainder of your trading week and an excellent weekend, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.